Fairies, elves, curses and cures. Scotland is no stranger to the enchanted tales of the supernatural. In fact, as early as the 1300s, the witchcraft craze was taking over Europe. But that's not where our story begins. The passing of the Scottish Witchcraft Act in 1563 made witchcraft or consulting with witches capital crimes in Scotland. Our witches in 17th century Scotland did not have the great grandeur of black cats and pointy hats, as pop culture would lead us to believe. Thousands of women were accused and killed on suspicion of practising witchcraft, but that didn't stop these radical witches having a great sense of showmanship and flair. Perhaps truth is stranger than fiction. Pop your headphones on and prepare for the way back. I'm your host, Ellen Donald, and this is Trip Through Time. Stirling, Scotland, 1633. God is law. Medicine is non-existent. War tensions are rising, and as to be expected of the time, so came the accusations of witchcraft. From furnishing the house in homemade cheese to flatbreads made of hair and nail clippings, these witches were as inventive as they were misunderstood. Jeanette Taylor, nicknamed the Witch of Monza, dabbled in many unorthodox practices. Sucking on the toes of someone with diseased legs was certainly more strange than reciting charms in sets of 3, something well known and feared in their incantations. Jeanette was in her elder years when she landed in hot water for her unholy ways. Many witches like her started their craft in their 20s, but didn't come into bother until later in life. You see, during this time, healthcare was not like you or I know it. If the common cold or virus didn't knock you down, the plague most certainly would. For that reason, most people thought they wouldn't make it past 30. However, Jeanette managed to scrape through to 55, quite an impressive age at the time. Maybe the amount of time she lived was a testament to her magic healings. Maybe that's why people trusted her. Or maybe there was simply no other choice. A paranoid yet desperate soul, John Sibbett, took his wife Effie McRobb to see Jeanette. He begged her to heal his wife, but she turned him away, for he brought no clothes to bless and heal her with. Determined as ever, he returned the next day with a selection of his wife's clothes and begged Jeanette to heal her. He emphasised he meant no evil, and that he didn't want any harm to fall upon him or Effie. Jeanette, taking pity upon him, agreed and performed a ritual with them both. And returned the now blessed clothes, instructing her to wear them for the next 24 hours. You may be surprised to hear, Effie miraculously healed the next day, but what's stranger is John's own personal transformation. You see, before he left Jeanette's house, he asked that the illness, the curse, whatever was wrong with Effie, that it be passed on to anyone else but him. Make the cattle sick, place the curse on a stone, as long as no harm came to him or his wife. But lo and behold, the next day, John took a 7-inch blade, raised it high above his head, and thrust it into his belly. Amazingly, he survived essentially gutting himself, but placed blame on Jeanette, saying as soon as he left her house, fairies taunted him till they made him harm himself. Was he mad? Did he set up Jeanette? Was it truly her fault? It didn't matter. Jeanette's reputation was in ruins. After all, if you can heal, you can harm. Accusing someone of witchcraft was not taken lightly, as the punishments were beyond obscene. Though Stirling didn't partake in the infamous process of witch dunking, that did not detract from the horrors of their chosen methods. A common form of torture was witch pricking, a humiliating and largely painful method. The accused would be stripped nude and had thick, long needles driven into parts of the body to discover the devil's mark. This was sometimes carried out in public and often led to a quick confession to avoid further degrading. One thing we can't forget is that these women were more than physically tortured. Walking the witch was a form of sleep deprivation, where prisoners were kept awake by walking for as long as 3 days. Stopping was never an option. If this wasn't enough, then surely hot stones and burning of the legs would cause even the strongest to falter. It comes as no surprise that many confessed under these conditions, regardless of their innocence. Most women were granted the merciful killing of strangulation before being burned at the stake, but Jeanette was not as lucky.
Jeanette Taylor, tried for her crimes of failed folk healing that caused neighbourhood disputes, maleficium, and unorthodox religious practice. She is sentenced to death, burned alive.
I find it awful that women like Jeanette spent their last remaining days deluded by sleep deprivation in unimaginable pain and without any form of human compassion. To then die as a form of human entertainment really shows the worst in humanity. So, has anything changed? Yes, and yet not by much. History is written by the victors, so it's hard to know the accused women's perspective back then. I feel it's important we remember these women as real people and not characters in some magical, fictional tale. Real women were tortured and killed. Real women lived in fear of falling out of line. Real women didn't write their legacies and they won't be remembered pleasantly. We hope this brief glimpse into Jeanette's reality helps paint a more sympathetic picture of what witchcraft for women was really like. Thank you for joining us on this grim trip through time. We wanted to continue our celebration of women in history and thought, though it may not be the happy ending we hoped for, that it was able to serve as a small yet significant reminder that we women have come so far in the face of fear and discrimination, but our journey isn't over yet. We'd like to give a big thanks to Pam Nicol at Stirling Archives for helping us piece together Jeanette's story. The music for today's episode was provided by Jason Winters, and backing vocals provided by Ross Beatty. And of course, a big thank you to Janie Ann for her amazing support on this project. If you've enjoyed today's episode, check out some of our others on tripthroughtime.com, where last episode we looked into the Edinburgh Seven and the discrimination Edith Pesce faced with the Hope Scholarship. Tag us on Twitter at TheWayBack and let us know your thoughts. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next time.